Good morning, my brothers and sisters. Welcome to episode number 104 in the Gospel of John. Today is about what do you do after the fall. We're going to use Peter as an example of that. Now, love has been the distinguishing mark of Jesus' followers. That's what he's asked them to do, specifically love for one another in the church. This goes all the way back to Leviticus, where he says, "You shall love your neighbor as yourself. I am the Lord." Of note, don't forget the main thing, which is he is Lord and we are not. So this immediately puts us in this learning and humble and obeying in a dependent position, and love is going to be exampled by him in the foot washing, which we're supposed to follow. So he says, I've given you an example that you should do as I have done to you. And then he says up in chapter 15, which you haven't quite got to, this is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. So love, specifically love for one another's, will be the marker that all people will see and that identifies you with following me. So this public proclamations of love with the one another's of the church becomes the personal witness of the world. Of course, the church love is effective inside the church, but what he's telling is love is also effective outside the love. So ironically, today's passage, that passage yesterday was to aim your love locally, and today's passage is about a local betrayal. So yesterday was, a new commandment I give you, that you love one another just as I have loved you. You also are to love one another. By this all people will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. And then here's today's. Simon Peter said to him, Lord, where are we going? Where are you going? Jesus answered him, where I am going, you cannot follow me now, but you will follow me afterward. Peter said to him, Lord, why can I not follow you now? Peter here, I will lay down my life for you. Jesus answered, will you lay down your life for me? Truly, truly, I say to you, the rooster will not crow until you have denied me 3 times. So this is the bold Peter. We love him. I want you to know now. I want you to follow you now into what is before you. I'll go to heaven and back, or hell and back. And Jesus says, do you want to go with me through the suffering in obedience and faithfulness unto death, and then glory into heaven? Peter says, I will lay down my life for you. And Jesus says, no, you will not lay down your life for me. Not only that, you will not even lay down your words for me. And then when you're given a second try, you will not lay down your words for me. And given a third try, you won't lay down your words for me. In fact, you have such a misassessment of your commitment to Jesus, and it happens immediately, and Jesus allows Peter to fall. And Jesus knows that Peter is going to fall, but somebody in the room doesn't know that Peter is going to fall, and ironically, that's Peter. Peter doesn't know that Peter is going to fall. So this is such a great call for humility and dependence. And then the immediacy of this also strikes me is, this is not like, hey, 5 years from now or whatever, you may have some bumps in the road. It's like, no, before the next rooster call. So this is Thursday night, and the rooster is going to crow on Friday morning. And by that time, Peter's going to have denied Jesus 3 times. All right. So the beauty of this is, though, it's not over with Peter, and it's not over with us if we mess up. So Jesus is going to end up in heaven, and Jesus promises Peter, hey, ultimately you're going to end up with me in heaven. And I just love this. It's like, Lord, if the Lord can love Peter, he can love me. So I think what he's saying to Peter is, hey, the spiritual walk from this point on to the end is likely going to have a few bumps. In fact, yours is going to have 3 huge bumps even tonight. And maybe they're infidelities or corrections or rebukes or sins or forgiveness and wrestlings. And we all along may have some sort of a misassessment of our commitment to Jesus. And if Jesus could restore Peter, or if you want to go all Old Testament, there's plenty in the Old Testament, Adam, Noah, Jacob, Judah. If he can help those people and walk those people to the end of their spiritual life, he can restore me. So Jesus is making a way to take Peter home. And I think Jesus is making a way to take us home as well. So let's use the fact that the Lord allows a fall. So the Lord doesn't pull Peter back from the fall. Let that idea sober us into not falling, staying close to the Lord, humbling ourselves before him, being dependent upon him. So I love that what happens to Peter after the fall. So he lives this life full of correction and ministry. It starts in Acts, it ends in 1st and 2nd Peter, and I just love Peter because he turns into this solid, theologically rich, encouraging, insightful, unwavering Christian. Read 1st and 2nd Peter if you want to get a taste for that. So I think today is about what will you do after the fall? And that's maybe not that Peter falls, but what Peter does after the fall is probably the best example of him. So sometimes the result of a fall benefits the ingredients, if you will, that go into making a successful Christian walk. So I'm not saying let's all aim for failure, but I think it's best if failure doesn't end with failure. And I think Peter's the best example of that. So we have a God who is restoring and forgiving and merciful and patient. But we have to do our part, and I think Peter does a good example of that, which is to repent, to turn, to agree with them, and live with the intent not to pursue this in the same way again. Don't say, I'm just stuck in the sin, I'm not going to change. So Jesus doesn't have perfect followers. If he did, we wouldn't need Jesus in the first place. So disciples, and specifically Peter here, is going to take correction after the fall. So the question for us as we conclude is, after your fall, will you be corrected? Will you be honest? Will you be forgiven? Will you walk before God in a humble way? Will you walk before him more humbly like Peter? That's what I like about Peter after the fall. Thanks for listening.